But the truth is, things are in fact getting done. But just because you can't see it all, you've got to remember you've got to keep on building. How many people throw in the towel in whatever area of their life because they want it done now, and because it's not done now, they give in the battle, and they don't realize that the little victories is what leads you to win the war. We've got to learn to celebrate the little victories. That's today's message, guys. Celebrate the little victories. I'm going to give you guys 3 points on why we need to celebrate the little victories. Point number 1, God is always working through the little things. And when I say little things, I'm not talking about things in stature. I'm talking about those things that are seemingly insignificant in your life. He is always working in the little things. The problem is we don't recognize them. So let me prove the point here. God is very interested in the apparently little things or the small things or the seemingly insignificant things. He will always use, let me say this a different way. God has a history of using small, seemingly insignificant things to accomplish big things. Okay, so we've got to learn to celebrate the victories. Let me give you a couple of examples for those of you guys who know. You know, God talked about the mustard seed, right? The smallest seed in the garden that grows to be the biggest garden tree there is. Smallest seed, about 1 to 2 millimeters, about that big, grows to be the largest tree in the garden. And God says if we would just have faith the size of a mustard seed, we could say to this mountain, be gone from here and go to there. He's taking this little tiny thing to express the nature of our faith. God wants you to believe so big, but he uses a very little thing to expand your belief. It's kind of crazy, but God is always using the small things to demonstrate the big things he wants to do. So if we lose sight of the little victories, we're definitely lost in the battle. Are you hearing me? Like for those of us who have kids, as we're raising our kids, if we lose sight of the fact that it's not just giving them an event every birthday, but it's kind of celebrating like every day, that they remain alive, right? Because they don't know how hard it is for us to just, yes, Daddy's like, yeah, I almost, yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Like, oh my God. Would you guys allow me to get real today? Because you guys know that's my promise. I'm going to speak for somebody because I don't know who it is. I'm going to speak both to the wives and to the husbands. Sometimes our spouses don't know how hard it is just for us to come home that day. Are you hearing me? Sometimes they just don't know how hard it was for me to say, you know what? I'm going to go home. Or let me stop my work. Let me get home. Let me deal with what I have to deal with at home. They just don't know how hard it is. And every day that we just kind of get past another victory, that's a celebration. Are you hearing me? We've got to learn to celebrate the little things. If you know the biblical stories where Jesus was with his disciples and he was with the 5,000 and everybody was hungry and it was too late to go buy some food, the little boy there had 5 loaves and 2 fish and they fed the whole multitude. God took something little and made something big happen. That was a victory. That was a victory. He took David and made him the first king of Israel. David was the youngest and the smallest and the most insignificant of his entire family. And God said, this is the one that's going to be the mightiest king of Israel, outside of Jesus, of course, right? He's going to be the mightiest one. He took something seemingly insignificant and made it something big. You guys remember the story of Gideon where he went out with 20,000 soldiers to fight. And God said, no, that's too much. Go down to 10. No, that's still too much. 300. What are you talking about? I'm going to roll with 300? Yes. And 300, and he won the war. God will always be glorified in the little things. The problem is we don't recognize them, and we don't celebrate them. We take them for granted. We take them for granted. We take for granted that our spouses are happy to sleep in the same bed with us at night. Are you hearing me? We take it for granted that our parents want to talk to us as kids. Because sometimes the kids, we don't want to talk to you. Yes or no? Right? Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. I love my kids. My kids are incredible. Let me just give that disclaimer. But we take for granted the little victories. Zechariah chapter 4, verse 10 says it this way. It says, do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. Look at me. He says, do not despise the small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. We disregard or we take for granted the little victories when God is excited about them, because the little victories means that you're starting something or you're continuing something. It may not look like the end something, but you're getting something done. When you celebrate the little victories, like let's say, and I don't know why I just keep going back to this, but let's say your spouse asks you for forgiveness. That's a victory to be celebrated. They didn't have to. Last night with one of my daughters, we got into a fight and we got into an argument, and I just felt so convicted that although I was clearly right in the scenario, you know, my approach was wrong, you know what I mean? So I had, sometimes you could be right and still be wrong. And so I got so convicted. I'm finishing up the teaching and just writing down, and God's inspiring, but I can't get her out of my head. I had to go and I had to call her down. It was already late. She should have been in bed. She wasn't in bed. That usually is another argument to have, but I'm like, all right, I'm trying to cool the situation. So I had to ask her for forgiveness because of what I said. I didn't want to ask for forgiveness, but that's a little victory. If she can learn to celebrate that, we can learn to restore our relationship. Are you hearing me? Sometimes when somebody asks for forgiveness, we take it for granted. We're like, that's not good enough. No, but that's the little thing that God wants to begin to use to make the restoration be complete. Are you hearing me? Do not despise the small beginnings. Another version says, who has shown contempt for the things that are new. So not only do you despise them, we show contempt for them. I've learned that seasons of life go on, that all seasons of our life, all areas of our life start small. Now, if you're young and starting a new season of your life, you don't fully understand this yet. Heck, all of us old heads, we don't even understand it. We've been doing it for a minute already. Every step of your life has got to start somewhere small. As I go back and I think about, you know, my wife and I and our relationship and our family and, you know, the house that we are blessed to have now, it didn't come overnight. You know, it came from the one-bedroom apartment while we were still in school studying. You know, the comfortable couch that when you come and you sit down in my house, you're like, oh, this thing is so nice. Where'd you get it? Believe me, that's going to be your reaction. And if you're not out in like 10 minutes, believe me, that's what's going to happen. In 10 minutes, it just works like that. But that couch, that was like the 5th generation from the garage sale on the street that I'm like, how much you want for these? $100. Oh, I ain't got $100. I'll tell you what, I'll give you $50 and I'll take it off your hands right now. And then a little prayer, and then, okay, fine. Like you were praying for the little thing back then, and now you're despising the little thing today. Knowing that everything starts small. Like I thank God for those couches. They went through hell over the years, like a bunch of dogs and, you know, all kinds of stuff. But I thank God for those. That was the little beginning. Are you hearing me? That now takes us. Every season starts that way. You guys know, or maybe you don't know, the season of just being broke. Okay? This is how things start, guys. You know, maybe it starts with the food stamps. And for those that really know, maybe it started with WIC. I'm going to let that sit on for everybody who knows. Some of y'all know the WIC. My wife and I, we knew the wick. Make no mistake about it. But Pastor, you're a lawyer. And what? We still started small. Everything starts small, guys. And as I get older, I realize that. So now I learn to celebrate more the little victories in life. The little victories. The little victories. When you learn to celebrate the little victories, you're really demonstrating, hey, you know, I do believe that God is moving. It's evidence of your faith. It's evidence of your trust. If you, every time I go like that, in case you didn't know, it's because God's telling me to say something that somebody needs to hear, and it's going to be like, boom, all right? Look, if you don't celebrate the little victories, it's because you don't have the faith to win the battle. Did somebody write that one down? That wasn't in my notes. I want to get that one later. Maybe a t-shirt or something like that. If you don't celebrate the little victories, it might mean you don't have the faith to win the battle.